Hi, welcome to Real Talk, a series of interviews of the members of the Vernon ROCKS Coalition to have real conversations about substance abuse prevention. My name is Skylar. Today, we have Chris Luganbiel with us, a Vernon ROCKS Coalition member and a co-founder of Become Part of the Solution. Thank you for joining us today, Chris.
My pleasure.
Before we get started, we wanted to give our viewers a chance to get to know you a little better. So, spin the wheel to choose a question of the categories.
Okay.
So what is your favorite high school memory?
That's, I told you, I back then, with my drinking, there's a lot of things I don't remember, unfortunately. So, I don't really know where to begin there.
Okay, so let's start with another question then. What is something on your bucket list?
I think the most important thing that would make me feel good and I think would be worthwhile would be to continue with Become Part of the Solution and pass on the whole philosophy. But what's been started here in Rockville many years ago, we want to pass it on, help people in need.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of Become Part of the Solution, what are the goals of it?
The goals are to get as many people involved as we can in the community and let them know that we're there to help them and their families. Right now, we've been, helping people since 1991, mostly getting people into treatment, raising funds to get them in treatment if they want help. More than a lot of times, a lot of the people that are victims of the addict, they want the help more than the alcoholic or addict. So if people are interested, we want to help them. So we want to pass that on. And like I said, we've been doing that since 1991.
So why did you start the organization in 1991?
Well, I'm in recovery myself. I'm grateful. I thank God every day. It's 40 years since my last drink. In 1991, a drug and alcohol counselor in Rockville, his name was Smokey, he came to me and he was telling me that he was having a hard time getting people into treatment. And this one person he was working with, he kept trying, it was no success, and he never saw him again. So he was afraid he might have died. So he came to me and he says, is there anything we can do to help raise funds to get people in treatment? And at that time, I had real estate, but it was dwindling. I didn't have the funds that I used to have, but I knew quite a few people. And I said, I don't know, what I can do, but I can try. I left his office that day and I kept thinking of one person in my mind. And as I left his office, it was almost like a miracle. All of a sudden, here's this person coming toward me in his car. I call that a God incidence. I pulled him alongside the road. I asked him if he would help. And he says, Chris, whatever we can do to help, we'll do it. So that was the beginning of Become Part of the Solution.
That's amazing. So what motivates you to do this kind of work?
Service has saved my life. It really has. Because I was in a lot of hospitals for many years. Not only hospitals in recovery of alcoholism, but a lot of psychiatric units, through the electroshock therapy. I was so preoccupied with myself, I couldn't get out of myself. A lot of people were trying to help me, but I was so preoccupied I couldn't get out of it until one time I was forced in a crisis to help somebody else. And by helping someone else, all of a sudden, I was not thinking about Chris anymore. I was helping another person. And I believe when we help our brothers and sisters in need, we get a reprieve from that. And I got hooked on service. And service has helped save my life. So I have a deep need to give people hope, because people were there for me. And when I know about Vernon ROCKS and how you young people are doing what you're doing, I had to jump on board to encourage you. I wish when I was in high school or before, I had somebody to talk to about this. And I'm glad that recovery is out there now for people.
So how did you get involved with the coalition?
Union Church adopted Become Part of the Solution in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
And one of your members happens to rent space from Union Church. And so that's how I got familiar with it. I heard about it. I believe it was from Michelle initially that I heard about it. And she had known about our fundraising efforts too to help people get in treatment.
Mm-hmm.
And Union Church actually, we got involved with them. Part of the deal was that we would set up Become Part of the Solution in their church, but the church would never receive the funds. It would always go 100% of what we raised.
Mm-hmm.
But the church also thought that was great, so we became a part of them, but everything we raised goes to BPS.
Mm-hmm. So what's been your favorite coalition event this year so far? Or not even of this year?
Well, I like the fact that you had something at Rockville High School where you had a lot of people administering, trying to educate people on recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get to hear your speakers, but I think it's important to put a face on recovery at the high school, get people in there, because there's a lot of people in denial, unfortunately, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they call alcoholism addiction a disease that tells people they don't have a disease.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of functioning people out there that are alcoholic, okay, and they're always justifying their right because, well, they go to work every day, they might make a lot of money, everything is fine, and then like me, that's the way I was, but on weekends, I would reward myself with alcohol. There was always another excuse. If I made money, I'd celebrate with alcohol. When I lost it, pour me another drink.
Mm-hmm. So what would you like to see the coalition do in the future?
Keep getting the word out there to the kids. Keep as many high schools, as many people, young people as possible. Keep getting the word out. The more schools like here in Rockville, all over the country, I mean, the more education that kids can get when they're a younger age, the better opportunity they're going to have. I was very shy when I picked, always afraid to ask a girl for a dance or a date. That's how it started with me. You give me my first drink, took away my fear. Next thing you know, I'm up there dancing, you know what I mean? But I never really talked about things that were bothering me. I never had to. Alcohol allowed me not to. It was, and that's kind of how I dealt for 15 years as a blackout alcoholic.
So if you could say something or give advice to a young person at risk for using substances, what would it be?
I would of course explain to them my story and what could happen if they continue. I remember the power of addiction is so huge. I even remember when I first started going to some of the 12-step groups, and that was 1972. I remember I went to some meetings, and I remember being brought from those meetings, and they asked me if they could bring me to a meeting the following night. And I basically told them that, look, you guys are nice guys. I admit I'm an alcoholic, but I can do it on my own. Okay, that's the power of denial of the illness. And so I did for 6 months. And then after 6 months, I rewarded myself. How could I have a problem if I didn't drink for 6 months? That's the insanity of it. But how do I reward myself? I go back and escape again in the alcohol, which to me, whether it's cocaine, heroin, a lot of the other drugs, Percocets, to me, a drug is a drug is a drug. Alcohol, I think, is a starting point for a lot of people. They minimize the problem. And alcohol is a very big problem. Some of us can drink in safety. Some of us don't have that. They can put down the drink. Some of us, like me, the only choice I had was to stay away from the first drink because the drink would pick up the next drink. I had all the good intentions. I had a beautiful wife, a marriage, 3 beautiful children, and my former wife put up with me for almost 13 years. I would make all the promises in the world, never do it again. 4 days later, it just seemed like it was gone. It was like a monster would come over me. Next thing you know, I'm in a package store.
So is there anything that you would say to the families of the at-risk youth for abusing substances?
Again, I would tell them my story and tell them what can happen. I'm involved with a lot of people through BPS. So what I normally do is I try to get people, young men, young women, and we work with a lot of people of all ages. But I try to get them into treatment. And then after treatment, a lot of times people don't have really safe places to go because where they're living is not safe. A lot of times there's people that are in denial in their own families. So we try to help people, and I encourage this to get them into men and women's sober housing. And that's what we've been doing a lot of, funding for the men and women's sober housing all over the state.
So in what ways do you think young people in Vernon can stop their friends from using substances?
Set an example, especially, and let them know what they're doing. Like what you guys do. You're putting a face on recovery to people your own age, and, you're giving them hope. You're trying to help them. And what's nice about that is you're planting seeds with everybody in that high school that knows about it. And what you're telling them is that there's help, okay? When I was in high school, we never got involved with any conversation like this. Nothing was happening. Yet, you see so many people getting, and I lost a lot of friends, a lot alcohol related as younger, it's the same thing. Now there's just many, many drugs available quicker. You're doing the right thing. You're putting a face on recovery, and you're getting it into the schools. And believe me, I'll do anything in my power to encourage you.
Thank you.
Because I don't want to see people go through what I went through. That's why I want to help you guys.
So what are some of the ways that a person can identify that they need help?
Well, first of all, if their lives are becoming unmanageable, something's going wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If all of a sudden they just got in an accident, a DWI, or they got in some kind of some people, they're, shall I say, very lovable, like with myself. I wasn't a violent alcoholic. I was more like a cuddly, huggy person that all of a sudden I'd get beat up and I never even knew what I said or did. Then there's other people that, of course, act out very violently. When people start running into trouble, the quicker you can get to them at a young age, and the quicker you can put them in touch with people their own age, if you can do that, that are doing well in recovery. They have somebody they can connect with. It's like when you have an opportunity to share with somebody else, when you really open your heart, you give them an opportunity to tell how you're doing. There's a lot of isolation out there. And being able to tell people, my own personal character defects, it's been able to help other people share what's going on with them. When and we can understand each other, most alcoholics and addicts. Not many people can understand, why do we make all the promises? Why do we do the crazy things? And yet, why do we go back and do the same? A lot of people, can't identify with that. Well, why don't you just stop? But they don't realize the power of this illness. And it is a very vicious mental illness.
So do people, in your experience, usually seek help on their own, or are they referred by friends and family?
Most of the time there's trouble in the family. A lot of times people just don't say, I want to stop. A lot of times there's normally, something happening there, whether it's their grades or, arguments with other people or that kind of thing.
So what is the first step to getting help?
Well, again, there's many meetings, 12-step meetings, and I would say that's a good start. Okay. Most people that get into the rooms of the 12-step meetings, okay, a lot of people will say to them, look, 90 meetings in 90 days. Try to get into as many meetings as possible, okay? The other thing, which is, in my opinion, even more important, and not say more important, but if you can get them into treatment, if there's a way for them to get into treatment, they'll learn about the mental, physical, and spiritual part of the disease. And when they're in treatment, they'll be given the tools. So when they come out, okay, they'll already know the importance of making the addiction their primary purpose, which is the meetings. Connecting with people that have been where they've been so they can identify with them.
So what is the first step of recovery, and would you say it's the hardest part?
Well, yeah, I think that when you realize that you're powerless over the drug, that's just the first step, really, that your lives are becoming unmanageable. That's a very important step, very important. Because, like I say, everybody wants it more than you do. You start to realize my life is becoming unmanageable, not because of what all other people are doing to me, but because of what I'm doing to me. See, that's the thing. A lot of us will always be blaming people, places, and things. There's always something somebody did, or if things were different, it wouldn't be the same way. And that's, a lot of people will the other problems are always more important to the addict than the addiction. And as long as they're more important, the addict never looks at the main part. So if they make the addiction the primary purpose in their life, then no matter what happens to them, they're going to be okay because they realize they're most important. Because if they don't do something, they're going to die. They're either going to get sober, someone's going to put them away in a mental institution, okay, or they're going to die. And that's how serious it is.
So can you tell us a little bit about the process of recovery?
Time. The longer you're away from it, the more you associate yourself with positive people, And again, a lot of people, even in recovery, a lot of them really are doing it because somebody else wants them to. They're not really, so they're fighting it. They still want to. So the idea is you stick with positive people that are working the program, that are involved with the meetings, that are into service, and that's the most important thing to do. Get sponsors, get people who understand, that can give you guidance along the journey, because a lot of us have already been that journey. We've made a lot of mistakes,
So one of your bigger roles is helping other people, obviously. So one of your other sub-roles is getting people into recovery and helping all those other people to get to where you are. So what are the greatest challenges in helping people getting into recovery, or to get them into recovery?
Well, one of the challenges, again, is funds. And that's where a lot of my service work has been directed in raising those funds. So I'm constantly reaching out to businesses, private individuals. I have no problem asking for other people if I feel they're serious. I get a lot of referrals from treatment centers. Like they'll have somebody in a treatment center and they don't have the money to get the first month's rent or security to get into a sober house. That's where a lot of times I'll hear about this and try to raise the funds to get them help.
So on a personal level, with the person individually, what are the greatest challenges for the individual getting into recovery that you would say?
Surrendering. A lot of them, they don't want to do it. They think they can do it on their own. That's normally the case. I've had a lot of people I've tried to help, but I also feel that whatever we can do for them initially, at least we're planting some seeds. Because I've seen people that we've tried to help, so you never give up. You always want to try to help them, get them exposed to other people. Because you never know like with myself, I went back out for 6 years. My last drink was in '78, but I remembered what I needed. At least I knew where to go. So the quicker you can get people into a place, at least they'll know that there's hope. There's hope. And that's the most important thing, is to let them know there's hope. That's why I've never had a problem with the anonymity part myself, because I never know who I'm talking to that might have somebody else in their family or someone else that, needs help.
Right.
And I've had people come back many years later that way.
So through all of the challenges, what helps to keep you in high spirits in this work?
Service. Being involved, being part of the solution. That's what gets me excited. It's exciting to see somebody get started, knowing I really believe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. There's a lot of people that are in total bondage from alcohol and other drugs. They're not going to talk about anything. They're never going to seek help from God from any source, never, because the alcohol keeps them in that state of mind.
So what are some of the greatest rewards in helping people get into recovery?
Seeing them get better. We've had some people that are sober over 20 years that we were helpful to. And that's a great reward when you see them out there in the public helping other people. It's just, it's wonderful. It really is.
So can you tell us about a memorable success story?
Yeah. Well, memorable. You're talking about as far as, I'm going back to, we don't do a lot of following of the people we help. We do what we can to help them, because it's not just in Rockville now, it's all over, But it's a nice feeling when people will get back to you even after 6 months or after a year. The sober housing has been helpful to them, or knowing that someone that's out there for 20 years, that's out there passing on hope. Another one's 16 years. It's a good feeling when you know you have a fundraiser coming up, and a lot of the people that you helped many years ago are now active in helping us. They want to give back. So it's rewarding for me to see them still involved, still reaching out, and helping to pass on hope.
So is there an individual story that you would like to share where you were like, yes, not only did I do it, but this person did it, and now they're going to get better?
Well, there's one that I can think of mostly. This man has got about 5 years clean. I met him at a meeting, and fortunately, we had the funds to be able to help him. We got him into a treatment center called High Watch. That's in Kent, Connecticut. He was in High Watch, and then after High Watch, we were able to fortunately have the funds to get him into a men's sober house. Okay. And I keep in touch with him now and then, and every time I talk to him, it's just getting better and better. He's going to be getting married now. He's going to be moving to Florida now. And he's had physical problems, he's had all kinds of other problems, but his primary purpose is still to stay sober. So he's happy, he's grateful. He's got a wonderful woman in his life that understands addiction, okay? And that's one I'm thinking of most lately.
That's terrific. So going back to fundraising, what have you done to fundraise in the past?
Early on, it was people that were believing in the mission. And they knew 100% was going to help. So fortunately, I was able to they were giving back quite a few years ago, quite a bit of funds directly. Lately, in maybe the last 5 or 6 years, we put more of a face on recovery by having a race every year, a 5K race. So in October, we have a race. And so we're going into our 4th year. And that's been very good. Because I believe when we put on a race, we are putting on a face of recovery. We never know who's at the race that might want us someday, want help. We have places like Cloder Farms in Ellington. Every year they're doing an ice cream social for us. So one night out of the year, all the ice cream goes there. And they've, believe it or not, it's done, even though it's one night, they've done very well. We have another group in South Windsor that's going to start doing fundraising. The name of their company is Yoga Born. They're going to start doing fundraising. They're on Ellington Road, South Windsor. That's going to happen pretty soon. You know, there's a lot of things I have in mind. I haven't really pursued it yet. But you know what's good about this, too, is that lately, since more people know what we're doing, people have actually been calling and want to contribute their time and their resources and their funds. So it's just a wonderful thing. And I guess the greatest thing now would be able to pass on what we've been doing here in Rockville to other nonprofit groups of other people that might want to do, you know, the things that we've been doing. And if there's anybody out there listening anywhere that I can help set one up, you know, I would like that opportunity because the need is there. You know, it really is.
So I've seen some of your calendars. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
That was another thing. I love taking pictures. You know, I guess you'd call me a photoholic. I love taking pictures, and there was a young woman in Ellington who was very, very good with art. Okay, she said, why don't we do a calendar? This is last year. And I said, I don't know anything about organizing and putting together a calendar. But next thing you know, we have a calendar. I gave her some of my pictures, and we raised over $3,500 in a month and a half.
Wow.
So we're going to do it again this year.
So do you have any more upcoming fundraisers?
Well, we have April 27th, Elks Carriage House. We're having some really great groups in recovery. They're going to be playing music from like 4 o'clock till almost 10 on a Saturday, April 27th. There's going to be 3 groups. One of them is going to start at 4, ends at 5:30. Another one at 6, ends at 7:30, and another one at 8 to like 9:30, 10 o'clock. They're very well known in recovery. It's going to be a free will offering. We're going to have pizza for sale, soft drinks, and we're hoping to do well there. That's coming up soon.
So what are recovery resources? What are some recovery resources?
There's a group called CCAR in Weathersfield, who's been a tremendous group of, they're advocates for recovery. And so I would recommend anybody that ever needs any help. You know, they also have a walk every year. They have a recovery walk. They have it at Bushnell Park, and sometimes they have hundreds of people putting a face on recovery. So I would recommend people looking in more into CCAR. I know one of the executive director that started it, you know.
So briefly, is there anything that you would like to say to any one of our viewers out there?
Don't give up hope. No matter how far down you think you might have, there's hope. If I can be alive here to tell you that I'm even on this show and I'm alive today, that you can make it, there is hope. Don't give up. Believe me, don't give up. Get to some meetings, call some people. You might think you have the worst problems in the world, but there's people that understand you. And they can give you that hope. That's what I want the viewers to know. And I'm there. And I know a lot of other people are there. There's a lot of people that are doing a lot of things, a lot more in other areas that I'm doing. You know, I'm just trying to be part of that solution.
Become part of the solution.
Yep.
Thank you so much for joining me today for Real Talk, Chris. To learn more about Become Part of the Solution, its fundraisers, and how to get involved, visit www.bpsrockville.com. And for more information about the Vernon ROCKS Coalition, please visit Vernon ROCKS CT and follow us on all social media platforms at Vernon ROCKS CT. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next month for another Real Talk.